We are with Karen Page, the author of the Vegetarian Flavor Bible. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So first of all, what is the Vegetarian Flavor Bible?
Well, it's an A to Z guide of hundreds of ingredients and the herbs, spices, and other seasonings that best enhance their flavor. And if it sounds familiar, it's because we also had a flavor Bible that came out in 2008, which I wrote with my husband, Andrew Dornenberg, who actually did the photography for the Vegetarian Flavor Bible. And this time around, the focus is mostly on plant-based ingredients, so you'll find lots of fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, nuts, seeds, mushrooms, and lots more.
And so obviously from the Flavor Bible to the Vegetarian Flavor Bible, you have become a vegetarian.
This past October, Gilles Robuchon, the great French chef, said that the cuisine of the next 10 years is going to be vegetarian, and I think he might actually be right.
He knows,
but we were a little ahead of the trend, and that Andrew and I decided to stop eating meat in May of 2012. So we've been eating a plant-strong diet since then. And so while our focus had been primarily on flavor, we finally started thinking, well, maybe we ought to give some consideration to what we eat when we're not eating professionally.
Right.
So what do? We start reading everything we can get our hands on about nutrition, and reading lots of conflicting opinions, and we came to the same conclusion that Michael Pollan came to, which is that nutritional experts disagree about almost everything, but the one thing that they will agree upon is the fact that a plant-based diet is best. So that's why we thought we would give it a shot in May of 2012.
But you're going to help us today, because I think for everyone who's listening to this and is going like, yeah, but I love bacon. You have a lot of
my favorite things.
Right. I mean, you have a lot of swap outs that I think for people who are a little afraid to get going can kind of work to help you not miss the meat so much. So where do you even start when you're saying, okay, we're trying to replace these flavors that we're used to? Where do you even begin?
Exactly. Well, you know, I think a lot of it gets back to the principles of flavor, because if you learn how to master a recipe, you'll learn how to make a single dish. But if you can master the dynamics of flavor, you can make anything taste better. And so the Vegetarian Flavor Bible, as does the Flavor Bible, really goes into how do you master the dynamics of flavor. And we talk about the flavor equation, which is the fact that flavor equals taste plus mouthfeel plus aroma plus what we call the X factor. And I think some of those ideas are going to come up as we talk about the dishes in front of us. Starting with the split pea soup, this was a traditional dish in Andrew's family, and Andrew made it for me for many years. He would make the split pea soup with the ham bone,
the ham in,
get that flavor of smoke and ham and meatiness in the split pea soup, and I thought, well, boy, am I going to have to give that up? No way. So this split pea soup was made instead with a veg stock and all your typical mirepoix, but it's seasoned with smoked paprika. And smoked paprika is one of those magical ingredients that if you add a little hint of it, you can, I mean, when Andrew gave it to me to taste for the first time, I thought, oh my God.
Like, are you cheating?
Are you sure there's no meat in here? But you get that smokiness, and I think that's one of the aspects of flavor that I learned becoming vegetarian, was that I wasn't really craving the bacon or the ham. What I was craving was the smokiness and the richness. When we were transitioning from omnivore to vegetarian, again, I was sad to give up the bacon. So one of the tricks I used was frying slices of provolone in a pan, and then you drain it off on a paper towel like you would bacon. If you fry it up crisp, it will be crisp and rich, and if you sprinkle a little bit of smoked paprika on it, that was my bacon substitute in my vegetarian days. But I think one of the other key principles about flavor is that if you understand flavor principles of different cuisines, so for example in Mexican cuisine, if you get the flavors of, you know, cayenne, chili pepper, cilantro, cumin, these are all going to be telling your palate that you're eating in Mexico. So whether your tacos are actually filled with ground beef that have been seasoned with these things, or in this case, as they have with lentils, you can also use tofu that's been frozen and then thawed, and you kind of squeeze out the moisture and break it up and season it with these spices, and it gives you the similar texture to ground meat.
Right, because I think for a lot of people it's the taste and then it's also the texture as well.
Exactly.
So if you can try and make those
you
come
can
together.
It can help as transitional devices to use. So I love the lentils because it's a whole food, it's a whole grain, they're great for you, they're great tasting. We got to taste this peppercorn flavored brie style vegan cheese from Lori Robin of Cheese Hound out in Fleischmann's, New York. Blew our minds. But you don't use dairy milk to make the cheeses. They're made with nut milks. So in this case, I believe it's half nut milk and half hemp seed milk. And so you get the richness from nuts and seeds. And then she actually makes a pate. So if you're craving pate or chopped liver or something along those lines, this is filled with umami. This is also a nut base. And what she adds is a half pound of Pacific Northwest wild mushrooms, so porcini, you name it, and she infuses it into a pound of cheese. So a half pound of mushrooms per pound of cheese.
You know, are there certain ingredients that you think are like secret, you know, back pocket ingredients of like this will always add flavor to whatever you're doing?
In the case of miso, I had not realized that there were as many different types of miso as there are, you know, French cheeses. So there's many different kinds. But if you're looking to substitute for, say, a chicken stock, something lighter, you can use a light miso, and that will be a nice substitute. If you're looking to substitute for a beef stock or something heavier and richer, you can use a dark miso, and that will help to mimic those flavors. When we were researching the Flavor Bible in 2008, we were talking with James Beard Award-winning chef Michel Richard, and he told us that he was so impressed with the miso soup that he had had at a Japanese restaurant. He realized the flavor was so extraordinary that he decided, this classically trained French chef decided to swap out his meat stock in his classic French onion soup for miso. And this is 2007 when we interviewed him. This is a long time ago. So I think what's happening is that we're coming full circle, that chefs are realizing that there are swap outs that they can make even in the best restaurants in America and in the world today, all in the name of flavor, that have to do with moving away from meat, moving away from dairy. So we had also interviewed Terrence Brennan from Picholine Restaurant in New York City and talked to him about how he worked to improve his butternut squash soup, which we thought is one of the best butternut squash soups we've ever tasted. And so what he told us was that he decided when he moved from chicken stock to squash stock, it would intensify the flavor of the soup.
Well, thank you so much, Karen, for teaching us about how to properly swap out vegetarian and vegan items for our meat and dairy-filled lives. And obviously, if you want to know more, you can pick up the Vegetarian Flavor Bible. It is full of so much information. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sally. Thanks for having me.